Wife said I was a pathetic dreamer for launching a business. She divorced me and took the house. I became a millionaire, bought the house back, and demanded she move out. This story has been sitting with me for years. I don't even know why I'm sharing it now. Maybe it's because I finally feel like I won. Maybe it's because someone out there needs to know they're not as alone as they think they are. Whatever the reason, here it is. About 10 years ago, I was living in Spokane, Washington. My name's Dale. Back then, I was 38 years old and married to a woman named Sienna. She was stunning, sharp, and ambitious. People used to tell me how lucky I was to have her. And I believed them. I thought we were happy. Turns out, I had no clue what was really going on in her head. We lived in a modest, 2-story house that we bought together shortly after we got married. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. It had a big maple tree in the front yard, a kitchen I hated because the counters were too low, I'm 6 feet 3 inches, and a garage stuffed with old junk we swore we'd sort out someday. I worked a dead-end office job downtown, and Sienna had a real career as an event planner. I put real in quotes because that's how she used to describe it. If you hate your job so much, she said one night over dinner, why don't you do something real for a change? She said it casually, but it hit me like a truck. She'd been saying things like that more and more lately, little digs that made me feel like nothing I did was good enough. At first, I thought she was trying to motivate me. Later, I'd realized she was just plain mean. The truth was, I did hate my job. I hated the beige cubicles, the endless meetings about nothing, and the feeling that every day was just the same as the one before it. I had dreams of starting my own business, but every time I brought it up, Sienna would roll her eyes. What kind of business, Dale, she'd say, her voice dripping with skepticism. You don't even have a plan. She wasn't wrong. I didn't have a plan back then. But I had an idea. My buddy Fergus had called me out of the blue one day with this crazy pitch about starting a company that made customized outdoor gear. Fergus was one of those guys who could sell ice to an Eskimo, and he swore up and down that this was going to be huge. I'd always been into hiking and camping, so the idea wasn't totally out of left field. But when I brought it up to Sienna, she laughed in my face. Customized outdoor gear, she said. What are you, 12? No one's going to buy that. That was the beginning of the end. I didn't know it at the time, but her respect for me had been dwindling for years. Looking back, I think she saw me as a placeholder, someone to keep her company until she could trade up. But I didn't see that. All I saw was a woman who didn't believe in me, and it crushed me. For weeks, I wrestled with the idea of quitting my job to start the business. Fergus was all in, but he needed me to commit. He'd already secured a small loan and was ready to get to work. I told Sienna I was thinking about it, and she flipped. Are you insane? She yelled. You want to throw away a steady paycheck for some pipe dream? Do you even know how risky that is? We fought for hours that night. She called me irresponsible, selfish, and a pathetic dreamer. I called her unsupportive. Neither of us backed down, and by the end of it, we were barely speaking. Despite her disapproval, I quit my job 2 weeks later. It wasn't an easy decision, but I couldn't keep living like that. Fergus and I rented a tiny office space and started working out of his garage. The first few months were brutal. We were putting in 12 to 14-hour days, burning through money faster than we were making it, and constantly questioning if we'd made a huge mistake. Sienna's attitude didn't help. She made snide comments every chance she got. How's the $1 million empire coming along, she'd say, smirking over her glass of wine. I tried to tune her out, but it was impossible. I could feel the distance between us growing every day. She stopped asking how my day was. Stopped cooking dinner. Stopped caring. I thought maybe I could fix things if I just worked harder, but it was too late. She'd already checked out. About 6 months into the business, she hit me with the bombshell. She wanted a divorce. It's not working, Dale, she said, as if she hadn't been sabotaging us for months. You're obsessed with this stupid business, and I can't be with someone who has no ambition. The irony of that statement still makes me laugh. No ambition? I just quit my job and poured my life savings into chasing a dream. But to her, ambition meant climbing the corporate ladder, not taking risks. She didn't want a husband who built something from scratch. She wanted someone who played it safe. The divorce was messy. She fought for everything, the house, the car, the savings account. And she got it all. I didn't have the money to hire a decent lawyer, so I walked away with nothing but my old pickup truck and the few belongings I could fit in the back. She even got the dog. For a while, I crashed on Fergus's couch. I threw myself into the business because I had nothing else. No wife, no home, no safety net. Just a dream that felt more impossible with each passing day. Living on Fergus's couch wasn't exactly ideal, but I didn't have a choice. My life was a wreck. Sienna had moved on almost immediately, posting pictures of herself at fancy restaurants and beach vacations with some guy named Troy. Troy was one of those smug types who wore loafers without socks and had perfect hair. Seeing them together was like pouring salt on an open wound. I wanted to hate her, but honestly, I hated myself more. I'd let her take everything from me, and now I was starting over with nothing. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom. There's nowhere to go but up. Fergus and I kept grinding. Every morning, we'd wake up at the crack of dawn, hammering out designs, calling potential clients, and driving hours to pitch our products to outdoor stores. Most people weren't interested. They saw us as two broke guys with a pipe dream. But a few believed in us, and those few made all the difference. Our big break came about a year later. We landed a deal with a small chain of outdoor stores in Oregon. They ordered 500 custom backpacks, and that one deal gave us enough cash to expand. We started hiring a few part-time workers, upgraded our equipment, and launched a website. Fergus was a marketing genius, and he figured out how to make our little brand go viral on social media. Suddenly, we weren't just surviving, we were thriving. 2 years after Sienna walked out on me, our company was worth over $1 million. I couldn't believe it. I went from a guy sleeping on a couch to running a business that was growing faster than I could keep up with. I finally moved out of Fergus's place and got my own apartment. Nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom with enough space for me to stretch my legs and breathe again. But it was mine, and that felt incredible. Around this time, I started hearing whispers about Sienna. She and Troy hadn't worked out. Apparently, he was one of those guys who loved the chase but bailed when things got serious. She'd been posting cryptic Facebook statuses like, "Starting over is hard," and, "You never know someone until it's too late." I didn't comment or reach out. I wasn't ready for that conversation. Not yet. Instead, I focused on growing the business. We expanded our product line, launched a partnership with a national retailer, and started pulling in 7 figures annually. I bought myself a new truck, took a few well-earned vacations, and even started dating again. But no matter how good things got, there was one thing I couldn't let go of: the house. The house had been my home, the place where I'd built a life I thought would last forever. It wasn't about the property itself, it was about what it represented. Sienna had ripped it away from me during the divorce, and I couldn't move on until I got it back. So I did. For years after our divorce, I bought the house. Sienna had put it on the market after falling behind on the mortgage. I guess Troy's income hadn't been enough to cover the bills, and her event planning business had taken a hit during the pandemic. When I saw the listing, I didn't hesitate. I called the real estate agent and made a cash offer that same day. 2 weeks later, I was standing in the driveway, holding the keys. But I didn't stop there. Sienna was still living in the house when I bought it. Apparently, she'd been renting it back from the bank until it sold. Legally, she had 30 days to vacate after the sale, but I wasn't feeling generous. I hired the same lawyer she'd used against me in the divorce and had her served with an eviction notice. Petty? Maybe. But after everything she put me through, I figured I deserved a little pettiness. The day she moved out was one of the most satisfying moments of my life. I didn't gloat. I didn't say a word. I just stood in the front yard, watching as she loaded the last of her stuff into a beat-up sedan. She looked at me once, her face a mix of shock and bitterness, but I didn't flinch. I didn't owe her an explanation. The look on her face was enough. Now, I'm sitting in the living room of my house, writing this. The same fireplace Sienna once told me we'd never afford to remodel now burns brightly with logs I bought myself. The kitchen counters have been replaced with ones that don't make me stoop. The garage is finally empty, and the backyard is filled with life again. Revenge isn't always about hurting someone else. Sometimes, it's about proving to yourself that you were right all along. Sienna thought I was a loser. She thought I was a pathetic dreamer who'd never amount to anything. But now I'm sitting here, in the house I bought back with my own money, and I can finally say she was wrong. To anyone out there who's been doubted, belittled, or left behind, keep going. Success is the best revenge, and when you finally get it, you won't need to say a word. The look on their face will say it all.